Hi, and welcome back to the European VC, the go-to podcast for everything European VC. If you love our show, share it with your friends and join us in the EUVC community syndicates at theeuropeanvc.com. Today, we're happy to welcome Audrey, General Partner at Ventech in its Paris office. The firm is deeply implicated in the evolution and diversity of European tech. Audrey focuses on product-led growth, retail tech, HR tech, and marketplaces. She has unique insights on entrepreneurs' business development, impact investing, and women in tech. She has joined the company since 2011, starting as an analyst and grew all the way through to general partner. If you enjoy our content, do support us by hitting the follow button, giving it a review, and following us on LinkedIn. Want to be on top of who the best up-and-coming emerging VCs in Europe are, and maybe even invest with them? Register for our newsletter at theemergingvc.substack.com and be the first to get in the know.
Audrey, welcome to the show. It's great having you here today on the European VC. How's everything?
Everything is great. Thank you for inviting me.
It's definitely our pleasure, Audrey. And, we always start the same way, so let's get into it. How the hell did you get into this wonderful world of venture? Tell us your story.
So I started working in the VC industry 12 years ago, and it's been 12 years that I'm actually working for the same firm, which is Ventech. So I started my studies in the financial market back in 2004. I made an internship, I remember, in 2008, and the last week of the internship was about watching Lehman Brothers collapse. So I was like, okay, maybe let's find another way of starting my professional life than starting like that. So I decided, exactly. I thought about doing something else, and I started other studies at business schools. That's where I discovered about private equity and more specifically about venture capital. I remember about a specific course at business school where my teacher was a VC actually, and he was coming with his entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurs he was backing, and he was coming at the school with them, and it was a fire chat, both of them, and they were explaining to us how they met and why he invested in the company, why the company chose him. So it was really about showing us how VC was working at school, basically. So it made me dream a lot. And that's how I really started to wish I would work in this industry for long. And so I made the last internship of this school. I made it in London in a venture capital firm called GN Capital, based out of London. And it's a company it's a venture firm which is quite similar to Ventech. I will tell you a bit about it later. And both of us, we invest in the same sectors. I learned a lot during this internship. I liked it very much. So it was all positive, but I hated London. I didn't want to work there.
Why did you hate London? They didn't speak French?
Oh, come on. Really, first of all, my boyfriend who became my husband was based in Paris, so I was not single in London. Everyone was partying and having drinks. All my friends were, partying with the brokers, and I was there, but I couldn't really take advantage of it. I was not alone. I was not single. So, it was a bit frustrating. I'm really a long-term person, not only professionally speaking. Of course, venture capital is a very long-term job. I'm really thinking long-term, even on the personal side. And what I didn't like with London is that everything was moving so quickly, People were coming and leaving. It's really a city where many of non-UK people who come to study or who come to work, and then 2 years after, they would come back to their country. And in my view, we were not really building long-term things. I remember we were, of course, living in co-living and not buying flats, while my friends who stayed in Paris, they were buying, investing in cars, in flats, in love relationships. While here in London, we were doing very short-term things, partying, which was great, of course, but also, not investing at all in the long-term part. And that's what a bit my frustration about London.
I can definitely relate to that. I have the same exact view. Whenever you have to spend time on something that you can see will not be part of your life in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, then it's just not worth spending even an hour right now. I could not move to another place and build up a personal circle of friends and so on there, and then know that I will probably not keep living here, or they will be moving somewhere else and that kind of thing. So I can definitely get that, Audrey, 100%.
Looking back at it, I mean, I have many friends who stayed there, and I mean, they are married now, they have houses, they have cars, so it worked in the end. But I remember really, we were partying with our bosses who were 7-10 years older than us, and they were doing the same things than us, co-living as well. So I was like, okay, I don't want to have exactly the same life in 7 years and without having invested in long-term things. So, I mean, that's a personal choice. I wanted to get back to Paris and also, get back to my boyfriend. And so at the end of my internship, during this internship, by the way, I met with Ventech team because DN Capital and Ventech co-invested a lot in the past, and we are still co-investing a lot with them. And so I met with one of my partners now at Ventech, the co-founder of Ventech, Alain. I met with him in London during the board meeting. So I knew about the team already. And during events that I was doing as an intern for DN Capital, I also met with the current analyst of Ventech, who told me, I'm going to leave. So at some point, if you want me to tell about you, I will do. So I asked the co-founder to discuss with Ventech co-founder and help me to come in, enter. And in the end, it was quite easy because it's all about recommendation in this world, And so as we had common links and, common relationships, it was an easy one to enter here. And the best choice of my life. I'm really happy that he decided to do that. It was all my friends were going to consulting firms and, probably earning much better than I. And, I really want to do that. I'm happy that I chose the long-term decision.
Audrey, so now you are partner at Ventech, almost 12 years after, right? 11 and something, I think. Tell us before we talk about more in your experience and story and lessons learned and so on. What is Ventech? What should we know about Ventech?
So Ventech, we are a pan-European early-stage venture capital firm. The specificity of Ventech is that we have offices all over Europe, out of Paris, Munich, Berlin, Helsinki, but also we have offices in Asia, out of Shanghai and Hong Kong. So it's really our specificity. We have local teams on the ground that are operating investments, but also helping other investments that are not from the country to come and expand internationally. It's one of the pioneering funds in Europe. We were launched 25 years ago already, and it's dedicated to tech and early stage. We only do seed, series A and tech. We have made a bit more than 100 investments. We exited more than 50 of them. People don't know Ventech, but I'm sure they know some of our portfolio companies. A few examples. So we've been backing Vestiaire Collective, which is a company in the circular economy, 3 months after the website was launched. And the company is now backed by Tiger and Kering. We've backed Believe Digital, which is one of the leaders in the music industry, music label. We were the first financial investor, and now the company is listed on Euronext. And we were also one of the first backers of Withings, which is a consumer electronics company acquired by Nokia. A few examples of what we've been doing here at Ventech.
One question on that front. So is Ventech agnostic in terms of verticals? And then a follow-up question to that, what about yourself? Are you focused on specific verticals?
Yeah, Ventech is quite diversified in terms of sectoral interest, sectoral expertise. We invest in the tech industry quite deeply, meaning quite broadly speaking, meaning we do marketplaces, we do e-commerce, we do software, of course, AI, but also hardware, semiconductor, which is sometimes a bit more rare for VCs. So we have all this expertise here in the team. I don't do semiconductors, even if I can do both software and digital economy, so e-commerce, marketplaces. Yes, I do focus on a few sectors, but I really think that my job is about, adapting myself to the new sectors. I try not to stay focusing on these sectors, and these sectors have to, move because, again, we are focusing on early stage. So we see the sectoral waves of technological disruptions coming at the early stage phase and then, living their life in the later stage. And then it's not our job anymore to back them. So we have to find another sector to focus on. So currently, I look a lot at the health tech industry, at the HR tech industry, the retail tech industry, and the Web3 world, of course, which is the one which is disrupting everything right now.
Just a final circle on what you do and how you think about investing before we go into your journey further. When I look at your portfolio, not Ventec's, but yours specifically, and I look at the ones that have exited, all of them have a buyer, meaning it's trade sales, it's not IPOs. Do you have a natural inclination to that type of business? Why has it ended up developing like that?
It's only due to the fact that I'm only 12 years old in the industry, and it takes maybe a bit longer to find the right window opportunity to get a company to IPO. At Ventec, we made a lot of IPOs, but it takes time and experience, and maybe I didn't trust this yet. But no, definitely, I invest both in B2C and B2B. I invest in sectors who could enter IPOs. Some of my companies in the same areas or in the same sectors with comparables that are listed. So no, I don't see. I hope I will soon come back and tell you about my last IPO.
That's great. That's great. We'll invite you back for that. Then we'll talk about that, juxtaposing it with the trade sales. Now, I just thought it was very interesting because, we tend in VC to, especially, media side tends to overemphasize the IPOs rather than the trade sales when it's actually the bulk of transactions are trade sales. So but super interesting. Good to hear.
I think, IPO, it's a lot about the market as well. Some cycles, sometimes the window is closed, and even if the company could have been a good candidate, and it's not the right moment to. So, you need time to get to that. And also you need maybe a specific type of entrepreneurs that either know how to, manage an IPO company, a listed company, or are able to hire this type of experienced people because it requires kind of different skills, I guess.
Yeah.
I often say that venture is notorious for having a bunch of not very loyal junior people. And I say it kind of as a joke, but I also think it's just normal considering the way our industry is and works, because it's very normal to see, analysts, associates, principals jumping across firms to get that promotion or just because opportunities show up. So from that perspective and from my perspective, you have somewhat of an uncommon profile where you go from analyst all the way to partner in the same firm. And my question is very broad, but very simple, which is what allowed that to happen to you to want to stay in the same firm and not jump across firms?
First of all, I think it's not just unusual in the VC industry. When I'm telling my friends that I only had one job in my whole life, they are like, what? But I changed already 4 times or 3 times. So I think it's a generational idea that you have to change quite quickly. It's a good question why I'm still there. I think, first of all, I think I am a loyal person. I told it to you already. I was partying like crazy in London, and I'm still with I'm now married with my boyfriend. And when I like what I'm doing and when I'm still learning, I don't see the point of moving. On the second part, I think the organization of Ventec, the culture of Ventec was able to adapt my path, my growth in the firm. So maybe on the two sides, to be honest, I never really understood why and how in this long-term industry, analysts and associates were moving so frequently, because everything in this job is about building a track record and proving that the choice you've made 10, 15 years ago, 5 or 6 better, but the choice you made in the past, they resulted into something positive. And so building this track record has always been my obsession. And I remember even the first year I started at Ventec, I was like, how should I do to start this track record? And my now partners were telling me, first you have to invest. So let's wait a bit. So I started to look for investment I could make to start this track record and be sure that as soon as possible, I could demonstrate that later on my choice could be proven as positive. So I think that was the first reason. It's a long-term industry. You can claim that as of today, your company is doing very great, but as soon as there has not been any exit, nothing is proven and it means nothing. So we really have to demonstrate that you can go through all the steps of the company. Investment is good, but you also have to support the company during the years of execution of this company until the exit. And sometimes people will tell you, in my track record, I did the companies I sourced, but I haven't invested in, or I have invested in, but I haven't exited. Well, it's not really your personal track record, and it would be always a bit vague, and no one would be able to tell, would have you been able to do that without another person taking it from you later on. So building this track record in the long term was really an obsession, and leaving the portfolio companies I had invested in to go to another firm was something which was hard for me. So, of course, I had offers. I mean, people came to me to offer me some jobs, but I was really thinking about, but this company I have invested in, and some of them are doing great, some of them are suffering. I mean, I need to support them until the end, and at least until the exit. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is really about, Ventec organization, Ventec culture. It's a company which is very open-minded in the DNA, because I think it comes from the DNA of our co-founder, Alain. He's really humble, and we really bet on diversity. We are 7 partners. It's a very diversified team. We are 40% of women. The age of the partners go from 36 to 60. We have 3 nationalities in the team. So the team is quite diversified. I mean, very diversified for the sector, quite diversified for the speaking. And that's what I like, but that's also what helped me demonstrate what I was capable of. Because from the beginning, they didn't try to put me in a box and tell me, that's how we work. That's what it is about being a VC. From the very beginning, I remember my colleagues telling me, there is no rule in this job. It's a 20-year-old job, so we don't have distance to be able to see what are the rules. And anyway, there have been so many different cases, and even when you're looking globally at great venture capitalists, even in the US, they are very different one from the other. Some are very outgoing, some are very shy and secretive. So even in the personalities of the VC, you see that it's very different one from the other. So I think everyone has to find its own path. And from the beginning, my colleagues helped me to find my own path. So telling me there is no box, there is no rule. There is a goal, which is about making money, investing in the right companies and support them until the end. And now that's the goal, and find a way to reach this goal. And what is really interesting is that I'm not the only one at Ventec who went from analyst to partner. I also have another colleague, Stefan, who is based in Germany, in charge of the German team, and he had the same path than me. But we are totally different, and we went totally differently. We were working totally differently, and this path went very differently. So I've decided to focus on specific areas that are not at all the one that he's been focusing on. Yeah. So that's also a way to demonstrate that I think it's really the culture of Ventec and this open-mindedness who enabled both of us to take the best of ourselves and leverage our own skills to go in the direction which was the best for us to achieve our goal.
That's really interesting, because Andreas and I have found ourselves in many rooms, meetings, conversations with GPs, typically founding GPs, managing partners, and so on, talking about succession in the firm. That is actually a big struggle. I think it is a struggle for the industry, and I think Europe is kind of behind the US in that a lot. And it's interesting to hear that Ventec, which in all honesty, it's not a huge player that everyone knows about in the industry, right? But how Ventec seems to kind of found something there. I don't know what, right? It's not 100% clear, but you have 2 people at least that are kind of a proof point of that. They've gone from junior ranks to senior ranks. That I find super incredibly interesting. I don't know if you want to comment. I didn't really ask a question. But...
Well, no, I'm so happy, David, because it's the second time in the week that I hear the same comments. And the first time was actually from LPs, one of our LPs who came to our offices on Tuesday and told me, what is your trick? I mean, you were the only one that I know as a European VC firm who were able to, let such a succession path go so smoothly. because now the co-founder of Ventec is actually becoming a senior advisor. So indeed, we are in the middle of the succession, and it's going so well because we've been able to grow as young VCs until being partners. And even this LP that I won't name, but was telling me, I saw so many mistakes and so many failures in this area of executing the succession. Please give me your tips. I was like, I think it's all about really the DNA of the people. It's letting us the chance. When I'm looking at what Stefan has been doing to become a partner and what I've been doing, it's really about letting us be ourselves and taking the best of ourselves. And I think the maturity of our founder and my other colleagues to let us go into that direction instead of telling us that's how you should do was the best way to work.
We have had an interesting talk actually on this show about succession with Oliver Holler from Speed Invest. And there I loved it because he was willing to also talk a bit about how he thinks about carry and so on. I'd love to hear you reflect a bit on what, incentive structures has allowed, which role have they played and how have you gone about it? Because this is where, the IF has also sometimes, I even think on this show said, well, I think that European, this was David from there, I'm sure you know, right?
Yeah, David Dana. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. He said that, well, we have in Europe too many senior GPs that are not willing to part with carry for the upcoming generations and also bringing them into the GP. And that just means that they have issues when they need to, transfer the firm and build out for bigger GP teams. I'd love to hear your reflections on this.
So first of all, there have never been any frustration during my path from analyst to partner. No frustration about carried or sharing of the management company because everything was quite natural. Both Stefan and I, we grew very naturally into this partnership. It was quite obvious when launching Ventec 5 that I would be nominated as a partner. It was so obvious. I had started my first deal. I had started being successful, starting my own track record, and I didn't have the time to ask for it. It was so natural that during the roadshow of the Ventec 5 fund, it came like that. Yeah, of course, Audrey will be the next partner. So everything was quite natural. And then, of course, you could have frustration about carried and the management company. But here, again, it's all about the openness of the partners to be able to bet on diversity. Either you're the only person to get incentivized and then you're alone, or you want to build a team and you know that you have to incentivize the other people. So the flat partnership that we have built here at Ventec is really interesting. It's very diversified and it's really based on a rule, which is that everyone should have the same incentives. And then, of course, you have some people that have been here for a bit more time than others. So you have to maybe manage a bit the transition, but it's all about building a flat partnership and all having the same incentive. And then some people live in another country, so of course you have to take into consideration that maybe their cost of life is a bit different, or that maybe their tax is a bit different than in other countries. So I think the principle is let's have a flat partnership, and then you go into the specificities of everyone to be sure that everyone is comfortable. Especially when all partners are so different, one from the others, young, more experienced, from other countries. So you have to take into account these differences as well to manage the organization of the carried and the management company.
I am wanting to change topic a bit here.
Okay.
I found myself having conversations with many GPs that are trying to build stronger networks with other GPs, of course. Sometimes they have a hard time connecting with the French ecosystem, actually, and specifically the Paris ecosystem. And you're knee deep inside of it, right? I'd love to ask you kind of a more trends and kind of macro question, what is exciting about the French ecosystem, right? And I know you're not only doing French deals, but you are based in Paris, right? So you see a lot of stuff for sure. So I'd love to have your take on what excites you there.
Well, indeed, we are a pan-European firm with offices all over Europe, but myself, I'm based in Paris and focusing on the French ecosystem. The whole DNA of Ventec is really proximity. So people in Germany take care of German companies. People in the Nordics take care of Nordic companies. In France, we take care of the French companies. so that we understand them the best way and we can support them the best way. So yes, I've been working in this French ecosystem for 12 years, and I can tell you it changed a lot. During the time when I started as an analyst, there were no foreign VCs being interested in the French ecosystem. There were very few entrepreneurs. Entrepreneur was not a fashion at all, fashionable things. So young entrepreneurs, that's where starting in the entrepreneurship journey, they were not the best students, I would say. They were more the people who were looking for their path. So it totally changed because now 12 years after, of course, we see that the tech ecosystem is so vibrant, so dynamic, that it's quite interesting because we have seen successes. I think we needed time, for showing successes. 10 years ago, there were 3 companies that were kind of the role models, like Mythic, the dating industry, acquired by a US company. And it took a bit of time for, and Ventech, which became VP. These were a bit 10 years ago, the examples of the tech winners. And what really went well in the French ecosystem is that these successful entrepreneurs, they have been working a lot to reinvest money, but also experience and advice in the French ecosystem to inspire new potential entrepreneurs that actually launched them. I remember this initiative, it was 10 years ago. It was Maxime Montigny, the founder of Mythic, Jean-David, Mr. Grandjean, the founder of VP. And the third one was Xavier Niel, the founder of Free. These 3 successful entrepreneurs, they made a call for startups. So they went physically in a theater for one day and calling for entrepreneurs to pitch them. And they said, we will invest. It was like maybe 10,000 euros. So now it would be nothing. Any business angel could do that. But they were the only business angel in the ecosystem. And so they also leverage the media industry to highlight this initiative, and so
cool.
The winners could tweet, "I am backed by Maxime Montigny," and so they really helped to make it fashionable to become an entrepreneur, and they also helped to inspire the new generation. And I think that's what worked a lot. And now, of course, we have French tech champions, much more recent, like Believe or Vestiaire Collective. And of course, they can inspire the next generation. But I really think that's how it all started. So what specificities about the French entrepreneurs? I think we are very product driven, maybe a bit too much sometimes. There are a lot of good engineers here in French, which is great. It's an asset, but it also means that sellers are sometimes not at the level. So when I'm comparing with the US, you have great sellers and they can sell any product. Here you have great product, but no customers sometimes. So we try to take care of that. And then there have been sectors where we have been able to demonstrate that we have strengths, like in the AI industry, for example, or where we can show that our good engineers were able to rock it in this area and rock it so much that even large groups in the US, Facebook and Google, decided to set up their own research centers here in Paris to take advantage of these great engineers.
I have to ask a question that David did. He only used it as the intro, but he didn't ask the question. 100% for sure, we have been hearing that the French ecosystem is very difficult to penetrate for someone who's not in that ecosystem. Why do you think that is? And give us your reflections.
You mean as entrepreneurs or as VCs?
As VCs.
Well, I think you have to be on the ground. It's really our motto at Ventec. So first of all, there have been many VCs who've been trying to do that from far, and it's a local ecosystem. It requires proximity. There are many local VCs here. So I think if you're not on the ground, it's really hard, at least at early stage, it's really hard to build a relationship and find the next leaders. It's quite centralized, so I would say it's a bit the opposite than Germany. In Germany, it's hard because you don't know where to start your journey. While being in Paris, at least you should have quite a good overview. So I don't know how to answer this question, but I'm open to discuss with any foreign VCs if they want to start their journey here.
Now, it's just interesting. I think, I don't have the answer either, right? Why is it that people are just kind of having a difficult time entering? Because, their proximity point that applies everywhere, right? So it can't be that. Have you ever thought, when you go to Paris-based events versus Berlin or something, that there is a different vibe or there's a culture difference, or is it related to how government acts or how LPs act? I don't know.
Well, maybe it's a very regulated country. Maybe that could explain a bit of the thing. So we have specificities which are due to, the regulations, specificities in the VC industry, specificities in the different sectors. So maybe there is a part of that. But we are quite an international place now. It was not the case 10 years ago, but we are quite an international ecosystem. In the events we speak in English. It's not as I remember going to the German event. It was in German. I don't speak German. So I was like, okay, thank you for inviting me. And also, I'm quite surprised by what you're saying, because it's also one specificity of the French ecosystem is the fundraisers. We have these brokers that are intermediating the deals, even at early stage, which is quite rare in the UK or in Germany. And they would, introduce very early stage startups to VCs. It's quite intriguing because it's only something in France, nowhere else. And this type of guys should help, any VC to also
open up.
Get linked to the startups. So it should help. I don't know. I don't have the answer to your question.
Well, we have a bunch of people listening in. So if you think that we're onto something, shoot us an email, shoot us a message on LinkedIn, share your stories. We'll share it with Audrey. We're happy to have a follow-up discussion on this, obviously, and try to understand the nitty-gritty details. Anyway, Audrey, we're running out of time, and we always end with the quickfire round. The quickfire round is when we'll ask you quick answer questions, 30 to 60 seconds answers each. Are you ready?
I am.
So the first question is quite straightforward. What are the areas, technologies, or sectors that excite you the most, that most people around you aren't really that excited about?
Data health tech, because people are very afraid about the health tech industry because it's very regulated, at least here in France. So some people are afraid about this over-regulation. I think that it will be totally disrupted in the next 10 years. This industry is not at the right level currently, and we need to put more money into it to make it evolve.
Completely agree with you there, Audrey. Second question. What are your top tips for emerging VCs across Europe who are now fundraising?
Find your differentiation. By the way, I am, in a way, an emerging VC because I launched a fund within Ventech, which is called Alliance for Impact, dedicated to the impact industry. So it's a new brand, a new fund, which is launching for the first time with a dedicated team. So I am into it. And I think finding your positioning, having something really special, reinventing the game, I would say, and even some rules of the game is really the main point.
Third and final question of the quickfire is, what has been the most counterintuitive thing you've learned in going from analyst to partner?
It's that there is no right or wrong, and that experience is not enough, and it's not all in this market. I'm listening a lot to your podcast, and many times I can hear people saying, there is nothing else than experience, so you have to wait. I totally disagree. I think that, we are in a sector which is being disrupted every time. And so you need to be a bit naive as well to be able to be bold enough to take a few bets. And that's why I love my partnership, because it's so diversified. You have people that are very experienced, and you also have people with a new eye who can say, maybe it has been tried before and not successfully exited or not successfully achieved. But now is a new period, now is a new momentum, and it changes totally the way it could reach the goal. So maybe one specific example. I've been investing in a company in the art industry, Singular Art, marketplace for art, putting into relationship independent artists with collectors all over the world, company present in 45 countries. Singular Art, when I've been presenting Singular Art in the investment committee at Ventech, they were like, okay, we will listen to their pitch, but come on, Audrey, it's been 25 years that I've been working in the venture, and I've seen so many of these types of art companies trying to disrupt, because yes, it's a huge market offline, and yes, it's totally under digitized. So, okay, there should be something, but I mean, none of them were successful. So, let's stop trying. And in the end, I mean, the founders convinced the whole partnership, and it's a successful company. So you have to make the bets. You also have to get a bit of naive eyes, I would say.
I love that answer, Audrey. Yes, experience can make us myopic, right? So that's very interesting. Audrey, thanks so much for joining us. This was awesome. I'm super happy that we got to know you and Ventec.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the European VC, the go-to podcast for everything European VC. If you love our show, share it with your friends and join us in the EUVC community syndicates at theeuropeanvc.com. Want to be on top of who the best up-and-coming emerging VCs in Europe are and maybe even invest with them? Register for our newsletter at theemergingvc.substack.com and be the first to get in the know.